Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome back to the channel. Dylan here. We have a huge update today from Senator John Fetterman that you do not want to miss. He just came out calling out his Democratic colleagues. He's not holding back at all, and we are going to listen in to John Fetterman because he's one of the guys. He's one of the the only Democrat senators who is, you know, going out with these based opinions that he has and trying to move forward with getting legislation passed to help America. And at the same time, he's calling out some of his Democratic colleagues. So we're going to dive into this, but before we do, we're going to read scripture and pray because God comes first. Amen? Comment amen if you believe that. Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid or terrified because of them. For the Lord your God goes with you. He will never leave you nor forsake you. Amen. Remember, my brothers and sisters, that God is with you, whether you realize it or not. Everywhere you go, He is with you. Amen. John Fetterman has issued a major challenge to El Sayed. He says, I dare you. Let's take a listen, guys.
All right, after a divisive race that split the party, far-left progressive Abdul El Sayed is now urging Democrats to unite after defeating Congresswoman Haley Stevens in Michigan's Senate primary.
We as a party have to come together. You know, we had a hard-fought battle. There were some disagreements, but I also know that the things that unite us are so much bigger than whatever it is that divides us. We have an opportunity right now to come together to embrace the idea that we can have an America that is affordable because Michiganders right now are suffering. Mike Rogers is exactly the opposite of that, and we have an opportunity to come together to defeat him, defeat Trumpism, hold him accountable, and start actually addressing the challenges that people in Michigan are facing.
A former Obama fundraiser and Silicon Valley tech pioneer Allison Wen joins me now. Allison, great to have you back on the program, and as has been well documented, when you've been here, you were heavily entrenched in that Democrat Party ecosystem. I'm sure you have a lot of friends still there. So what are those friends saying this morning about what this means, this win by El Sayed means for the future of their party?
Well, they can't have their cake. You know, you can't, you have to decide what side you're on. Is this the party of Michigan auto workers, or is this the party of socialism, Mandami, and AOC? And so there is a split down the middle right now. And so they need to decide. And if it's going to be socialism, they're going to lose a lot of people like me. I know I used to be a big Democrat, and then I was forced to become a Republican, happily Republican now.
So Pennsylvania Senator John Fetterman is issuing this challenge to El Sayed over the course of the next 3 months. Listen.
And I just want to issue a dare. Continue to campaign with Hassan Piker right now. You're in a general election now. I dare you. I dare you. Keep campaigning with someone like Hassan Piker, the guy that, you know, on the 25th anniversary of 9/11, my best friend says America deserved 9/11, and you're going to try to win a general election. So that's, how can he reconcile the outlandish thing that he said?
Okay, so that's the question, Allison. We heard in the introductory soundbite that I played that El Sayed wants to bring everybody together, bring the Democrat Party together. But what does El Sayed actually campaign on? Is he going to do things that maybe disavow some of his previous positions to bring more independents back in and bring more sort of center-left Democrats back in? Or does he continue campaigning with Hassan Piker and the like and say, this is me, I'm going to double down on this?
Well, we actually have to look at his spots. His spots show us that he's a socialist. And so what does he say? Well, free health care for all. What does that mean? Free groceries for all. Well, I grew up in a socialist country. Free health care means that, I was bitten by a rabid dog when I was 5 years old in a communist country, and I was sent on a bus for 10 hours to get the medicine. And for groceries, we stood in line for 10 hours with my mother. That's the harsh reality of socialism. So do you want that, or do you want growth? And then double whammy with California, it became the Socialist Republic of California. Our beautiful, great, innovative state succumbed to the socialist mayors like Karen Bass, as well as the catch and release district attorney of Chesapeake and George Gascon, that made our streets very unsafe, bad schools. They outlaw algebra here in San Francisco. So I want to hear real policies from Abdul El-Sayed and hear what he has to bring people together. People at the end of the day, they want grocery, they want safety on the streets. I know I have three young adults, and that's what I care for about the streets in San Francisco and Los Angeles, where my daughter lives. She was attacked there. What are you going to do to make it safer? What are you going to do? There are kids that are going to UCLA and Berkeley, and they've not even taken algebra. I can't even believe that.
That's unreal. Yeah, and to your point, this isn't a mayor, this isn't a representative, this is a senator with national implications that will touch you there in California, will touch us here in New York, will touch the entire country if he's elected, and we need to pay attention to that. Allison, it's always a pleasure. Thank you, my friend.
Whoa, and listen to John Fetterman. This is huge, guys.
I know you've criticized several of El-Sayed's progressive policies. You've been involved in a public dispute with him as well. What's your reaction to his victory that we have now projected in this key battleground state of Michigan?
Well, I think it definitely puts the seat in play. Michigan typically doesn't really elect a Republican in the Senate for a while. And now Rogers was a very strong candidate, objectively. He barely lost to Slotkin, and she's a very strong candidate, and she just barely won back then. So now, if you've seen some of the polling, El-Sayed is under maybe 5 to 6 points or more against him. And now some real money is going to flood into that state. And a lot of the things that he has done and said during the primary, we're going to come back to haunt, like campaigning with a guy that loves Hamas and is very proud to stand with communist regimes.
So you're talking about Hassan Piker?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah,
who was out there with El-Sayed on the campaign trail. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, you'll be able to find out what he really thinks. Is he still going to campaign with a guy that proud to love Hamas? We'll see. Are you going to campaign with a guy that openly loved Mao and even dresses like him too for events? So overall, you're going to find out. He was he had a very arrogant campaign, and now today he just discovered that less than a majority of your state's only Democrats didn't even want you and vote for you. You came in around 48%. So you have a real situation as Democrats now that puts that seat in play.
President Trump just moments ago called El-Sayed's projected victory in Michigan, and I'm quoting Trump now, great news for the Republican Party, labeling El-Sayed a, quote, communist loser who hates Jews and Israel, end quote. How do you respond to what the president is saying, and do you agree with his assessment?
I'm saying objectively, as a Democrat that understands how to win a competitive state, it's like it does put it in play. And 100% the Republicans were eager to run against him, and that's where we are. And now you see how close it was, 14,000 votes out of 1.5 million votes. And now that's a divided primary. And he has said a lot of negative things towards her and other people. And now I think he's going to find out that he has to mend fences, as he said. Well, I guess we'll see.
Considering El-Sayed's win in Michigan, and we've now projected he is the winner in the Michigan primary, are you willing to consider that perhaps you are the Democrat missing what voters want from their candidates?
So for me, this candidate, I have a great relationship with vast majority of Democrats. We have really great candidates across the map. In Ohio, Georgia, in Texas, we have great ones. But, I have a real problem with people that are proud to campaign people that loved Hamas or that they love communist kinds of regime and under those kinds of policies overall. And that's why I'm saying objectively as a Democrat in the Senate saying now that puts that seat in danger. And now that could, and now people like Sanders, after what he's done in Maine with Plattner, and now it's like it's creating more kinds of chaos. And now it's like, will you own the blowback and making it much more difficult to defend this seat?
If a Democratic Senate primary were held in Pennsylvania today, the Commonwealth, as you like to call it, of Pennsylvania, do you believe you would win? If there was a primary, a Democratic primary in Pennsylvania.
Like today?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's we don't know exactly, but overall, it's 2026, so it's really kind of a theoretic.
It is a hypothetical question.
I mean,
but I asked the question because you told my colleague Manu Raju last month, you probably remember, that you would leave the Democratic Party if it adopts an anti-Israel policy, calling it your red line. What exactly does that look like, and at what point will you make that decision to potentially leave your own Democratic Party?
Well, I've said this, if the Democratic Party adds that into the platform, if they say we become a party that will never vote for aid for Israel, or if we will define Israel as the aggressor, or that's the problem in the region, so then that would force me to reconsider that.
That one issue alone, just Israel, if the Democratic platform upcoming were to say some anti-Israel stuff, you would leave?
Well, that's become the defining, really the defining litmus in this race. I mean, if you've been following the Michigan race, it was AIPAC, 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 AIPAC. I mean, that really made that the center of that race and all the other races across our country. So
AIPAC, the pro-Israel lobby organization. Why is Israel, another country, your red line right now, this is what your critics are saying, rather than a domestic issue that impacts Americans' everyday lives?
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree with a lot of Democrats, too. And then when you migrate into these extreme kinds of views and embrace the kinds of people that should really be considered toxic. So, of course, I'm entitled to my opinion, and if you're proud to campaign with those individuals, great. That's really up to them. I called trash Plattner. I called that he is a real problem, and now why people seem to be okay with it. Why was Bernie Sanders okay with the guy? And he was already the Nazi tattoo. And after all the allegations of roughing up his ex-girlfriends and saying terrible things, indefensible things online, and you would push these kinds of candidates that put our ability to reclaim the majority at serious risk.
I hear everything you're saying, but why is Israel your red line, the major issue that would force you potentially to leave your own party?
Because I think we have our nation has a very special responsibility to protect and support Israel. I mean, we're Democrats. We're the ones that have a very kinds of progressive values. That's the nation that only has those kinds of similar values in that entire region. And now, if you look at the kind of danger and the circumstances there, remind people that Israel is not the aggressor. They've been pushed into this existential war. And now I think for me, it's very critical that I'm proud to say I will always vote and support Israel. There are no Republicans that are pro-choice and pro-union and pro-gay community. I mean, all of those things. So, if you consider me politically homeless at some point, now I have put me at odds. And I don't know why. I think more people can appreciate, calling out people that are appropriate, whether it's people like Plattner or whether it's someone like Hassan Piker, or you have, people, incoming Congress people that were going to wipe their mouth with the American flag. I mean, it's like, why is it, it seems like if you can't criticize or call that out, because it seems like if you are a DSA people, run your under your own banner. Run, hey, I'm going to run as a DSA, the DSA party.
Socialists of America.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we want more socialism, and now we become more embracing communism in many of those circles.
So you think socialism eventually emerges and becomes communism? Is that what you're saying?
What I'm saying, what's become acceptable to say, for example, now, organizations like J Street have now made it okay for Democrats to vote against even supporting Iron Dome, purely defensive kinds of a system. Why would you not support that kind of a thing? And that's pushing us in the Democratic Party. Are we willing to turn our back to Israel? History has demonstrated that if a nation or people will turn their back to the Jewish community, that has some very tragic outcomes.
Congresswoman Haley Stevens, who just lost this Democratic primary in Michigan, echoed calls across the Democratic Party for unity heading into the fall. Are you willing to unify with Abdul El-Sayed, for example, who's now the Democratic nominee, the Democratic candidate?
Oh, yeah, the tough guy. He called me ugly and then I should be on a pike. And I'm like, Chief, I own mirrors. I know I'm an ugly guy. But if you want to put me on a pike, I mean, he has like a little man syndrome kind of energy. And now he was really arrogant in that race. And now he have just found out that, less than a majority of Democrats want him. And he has a serious responsibility between now and November to hold that seat.
So you think he could lose to Mike Rogers?
Oh, 100% that's possible, without a doubt. I mean, the polling seems to indicate that it is in danger.
So how should members of your party, the Democratic Party, come together to defeat the Republican candidate?
Yeah, well, I can't come together with someone if you are willing to embrace people that loves Hamas or that thinks America deserved 9/11. I think that's reasonable, and I think that's the reasonable view. Being able to kind of be like, well, maybe and try to ignore those things. That's not a big tent situation. There are things that are unacceptable to have these views as a Democrat.
Wow, that is crazy, guys. Now, take a look at John Fetterman. He says, I'm one of the few Democrats willing to call this out. Let's tune in, guys.
Not every Democrat is rushing to embrace the far left. Pennsylvania Senator John Fetterman is the voice of sanity within that party, pushing back against all of this. So, of course, socialist-backed Abdul El-Sayed, he would like to put John Fetterman's on a pike as a warning to other Democrats. And with Democratic candidates now openly running against Fetterman, the question tonight is simple. How much more of this can he take? And how much should he take? And does he want to be a part of it? We asked the man himself. Pennsylvania Senator John Fetterman. I think it only right to first give you a chance to respond. Senator, I would like to see you safe and secure with your family. I take that as, let's put Senator Fetterman's head on a spike. That's how I interpret it. How did you interpret it?
Well, congratulations. 4 out of 5 Hamas members love that guy. And now, he's become part of the DSA. They're really trying to take over the Democratic Party. I mean, these are the kind of people that, as a Democrat, I just can't ever defend these people. And then when you look at that woman in Wisconsin, I mean, if I'm running for the governor with her as a Democrat, I'd be losing my mind. I mean, I'm losing to total crazy pants. And now, like I've watched her in some of her views. Whether it's in Wisconsin or whether in Michigan now, these are the people that are winning elections across this country. And I think I'm probably one of the few Democrats that's willing to call it out, and I watched that interview on your network where the co-chair of DSA is saying, well, we got to abolish the presidency, the Pentagon, the Senate, the presidency, and abolish the police and the border. And now that wasn't parody. This wasn't Portlandia. This was a serious interview with someone that claims that is the platform. And now why more Democrats are willing to call this out. Yeah, thank you for putting it up. Exactly. I mean, it's now, and people like El-Sayed, I mean, this is a guy that campaigns with Piker. And now coming up on the 20th anniversary of 9/11, the guy that said America deserved that, he's proud to campaign with him, proud to campaign with the guy that described Hamas as 1,000% better than Israel. And that's not reasonable if you're that guy. I mean, I've seen the Pew polled 44% of Muslims view Hamas in a positive light. So, that's their new strategy, clear that he's going to try to win there in Michigan. But I'm going to call it out and can't defend these kinds of extreme things. And now the more and more when you kind of drill down on some of these candidates, that they can't really articulate and defend these absurd views.
All right, thanks for...
Wow, that is crazy, guys. And look at John Fetterman here. He says, stop giving me lectures. He's calling out Bernie, guys. It's insane. He's calling out one of the leaders of the Democrat Party. And he's a Democrat. He's turning on his own party now.
All right, here with reaction, Pennsylvania Democratic Senator, the only elected Democrat that has been outspoken against the shift in his own party, the only one. No other elected Democrat. Now, there have been other Democrats like Joe Manchin, Bill Maher, James Carville, Van Jones, Mark Penn, but the only elected Democrat is the one on your screen, John Fetterman. Why is the silence so deafening among your other Democrats?
Well, I mean, they're afraid of them, honestly. I mean, they can say that in politics. You can define what you're afraid of is if you're unwilling to criticize them. So now, like, I think it's entirely appropriate. I think it's a responsibility as a Democrat to call this out. But I just like to remind everybody watching right now, you know, Bernie Sanders will never represent any more than 640,000 people in Vermont. That's all he's ever done, and he ever will do. You know, he's never won an actual competitive election. And now why can't, stop giving me lectures on how to win. You know, Bernie's not flipping seats. He is helping install volatile and dangerous kinds of candidates and now put, Democratic seats at risk. I've flipped seats. Now, he's never done that thing. I'm tired of his lectures, overall. And now he claims that he's not a member of the Democratic Party. Why can't the DSA people just, they should just run and there's their own party. And now I think it's important to remind people, who is driving a lot of this conversation. And now, I see that Chris Rabb's coming up, later. He represents literally the bluest district in the country now. And he's going to have extreme views that he couldn't go anywhere beyond just this district there.
Well, let me ask you about this. One thing more about Bernie Sanders. I mean, you cannot deny his endorsement, AOC's endorsement, has been the most successful of any Democrat that has been out there endorsing this election season. I think he is definitely consciously, by going on the Fight the Oligarchy tour, he's passing his communist socialist mantle, if you will, to AOC, and now it's showing up in that New Hampshire poll where she would be the leading 2028 presidential candidate. It seems like Bernie's having an impact on these primaries in a major way. Well, that's one thing to win a primary, but what about a general election? Can these people win?
Well, but my point is he's not flipping seats. And it's not that long ago that he got, Plattner shoved up his
say it. Don't worry about it.
You can't say it. No. But, he really had the Plattner disaster, and, he's responsible for these kind of things. He's not flipping seats. He's installing unstable and these kinds of people that put Democratic seats at risk now in Michigan. Now it's undeniable. So it's like he's giving advice, how do you can't flip seats.
Well, what would you like to see as the future for your Democratic Party? And I know, a lot of people said that the line in the sand that you've drawn as it relates to Israel, that is your line, that the party, but there is an anti-Semitic wing that has emerged within the Democratic ranks. There's even one on the new right, if you want to be honest, although it's not as loud, and I don't think it's as outspoken, and I don't think it's as institutionalized. So my question to you is, as you hear all of these positions, for example, all these DSA candidates, there'll be 40, they want to eliminate the Senate, they want to choose the president and judges, amnesty for illegals, abolish borders, abolish ICE, they want to defund the Department of War, dumb, end all deportation, eliminate cash bail, establish a wealth tax, cradle to grave Green New Deal, abolish prisons, abolish police, public ownership of most corporations. Now, Senator, I think I know you pretty well. I don't think you believe any of that.
I really don't know. But they're not ashamed to say these kinds of things. Abolish all of those things that they're not viable. And now Syed, he just won. And I just want to issue a dare. Continue to campaign with Hassan Piker right now. You're in a general election now. I dare you. Keep campaigning with someone like Hassan Piker. If I was a Republican, I would just dump $20 million for ads. He pals around with Piker, the guy that, on the 25th anniversary of 9/11, my best friend says America deserved 9/11, and you're going to try to win a general election. So that's, how can he reconcile the outlandish thing that he said, and his record, and I'd also remind people that the vast majority, the majority of Michigan Dems picked someone other that wasn't El Sayed, he barely won by 14,000 votes. And if McMorrow wasn't in that race, without a doubt, he would have lost that. So he's not had a big night. He did one. But overall, remind people, the majority of Michigan Democrats picked someone other than he is.
Well, you look at Mike Rogers, distinguished Army vet, FBI special agent. He was chairing the House Intel Committee, 14 years in Congress, pro-America. I think the people of Michigan are pretty smart, and I have a lot of faith in them. They remind me a lot of the hardworking people in your state of Pennsylvania. Senator Fetterman, we always appreciate your time. Thank you, sir, for being with us.
Wow, that's crazy. John Fetterman, guys, is not holding back at all anymore. Look at John Fetterman. He just said he's calling out Mamdani as well. This guy's really going against the Dems. Take a listen.
After promising to arrest Prime Minister Netanyahu if he visits New York City, socialist Mayor Zoran Marxist Kami Mamdani was forced to admit in a pretty embarrassing video that he does not have the authority to do so because he's just a mayor. In other words, exactly what we told him last night on this show, earlier today. He dodged a question about when he realized he didn't have the authority. Take a look.
Exactly did your administration tell you that this was not possible? Because when you floated this idea last year, legal experts all came out and said this is not a possible thing that the city can do.
Yesterday, I was on Staten Island for a meeting with faith leaders, and a young man from Gaza attended that meeting as part of an organization that houses refugees on Staten Island. He did not have one of his arms. He was one of the many children that have been maimed by this genocide.
Now, the truth is he knew the entire time and was simply lying. Now, of course, others on the radical left are supporting his calls for Prime Minister Netanyahu's arrest. Squad member, Congresswoman Tlaib, calling him, telling him to call her if he needs any help. Take a look.
Ways. I'm obsessed with him. He's doing a great job.
Well, he's exploring ways to arrest Netanyahu. What do you think about that?
Arrest him. He's a war criminal.
Does he even have the authority to explore the arrest of Netanyahu?
I don't know if it applies to citizen's arrest. If he needs help, tell him to call me.
What, a citizen's arrest? Good luck trying to get within 1,000 yards of him. They're not only communists, but they are simply dumb. The party isn't even trying to hide their anti-Israel agenda anymore. Just listen to what radical Congressman Ro Khanna said Democrats will do if they do one day regain control of Congress. Take a listen.
And we're going to push to end aid to Israel that committed a genocide in Gaza.
Here with reaction, Pennsylvania Senator John Fetterman. You know, Senator, you said over and over again, you're not leaving the Democratic Party. You have also said that your long concern has been the party will turn their back on Israel. You said that is moral clarity for you, and you said, except for that one condition. Is this the issue that could tip the balance and you could no longer be associated with this party anymore?
Yeah, I've been very clear, and I've been warning for actually years that the Democratic Party is going to continue to be more and more anti-Israel. And now people like whether Mandami or some of the other freak shows that are winning some of these primaries are now hostile and intensely anti-Israel. You know, really just raging anti-Semitism in a lot of the statements that these people have made right now. And when now you have the mayor of a city, you are a mayor, dude. You're a mayor. You can fix a pothole. You can take out the trash, but you can't
order people to arrest anybody any more than I could, or I could have him arrested if he goes to Pennsylvania. It's a joke, and he's a clown. And now he also said that Netanyahu is not welcome in New York. And you can't say that any more than I could say, Mayor, you're not welcome in Pennsylvania. So sit down. You're a clown, and you are just going to pander to the fringe. And that's part of your base. And I know you're angry at Netanyahu because he killed a lot of people you admire, whether like at Sinwar or Nasrallah or El Khamenei in Iran. That's the guy that will only criticize the prime minister or Israel, but he never criticizes Hamas. He's never criticizing Hezbollah or Iran. I've never heard the mayor say and condemn Iran for killing 40,000 of its young people just asking for democracy in their nation.
If you look at the UN, and over the years they've had the leaders with the worst human rights abuses and records show up. Never has a Democrat ever called for the ICC to charge them. Never, ever. I've often said that the UN is, routinely anti-Semitic, anti-American. So Mamdani makes this. Yeah, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, and I would remind people too that the head of the ICC, to remind people that America is not part of that kangaroo court. Neither is Israel as well too. But now the leader of that was now just taken out for sexual abuse, just like P. Hustle too, in Maine, and now he has no standing, none of it. So that's the kind of people that Mamdani backed, whether it's P. Hustle in Maine or the head of the ICC, but so that's part of the thing. And now the UNRWA, now that was absolutely rife with Hamas people too. They finally realized that. So I vote to shut that down. The UN is intensely anti-Israel, as it's always been, and now that's become more and more documented.
As you affectionately call him, Pete Hustle, I mean, his replacement doesn't seem a whole lot better. Like most Democrats in Maine, they were unwilling to criticize Graham Plattner. Do you envision maybe even supporting Susan Collins?
No, I'm staying out of it. But what I'm very clear, there are so many Democrats that rallied behind P. Hustle in Maine, and now you have Democrats I guess he's not a Democrat, but he's a socialist. But people like Sanders really made his candidacy possible. And as more and more things came out, and the more absurd things that he said, or now it's clear that he is roughing up ex-girlfriends, he dismiss it or defend that kind of abhorrent behavior. So now he's participating in the other train wreck in Michigan, another intensely anti-socialist. They're not Democrats. Now, we have a lot of great Democrats, whether it's Ossoff or it's either the President Polis out in Colorado. A lot of great Democrats, but these people are not Democrats. They are just the kinds of people that are anti-Israel and anti-American, and I'll call them out as a Democrat, and I don't know why more people won't.
How do you see this playing out? You got 35 now primary winners that identify with Mamdani. How does this play out? This is the most radicalized Democratic Party I've ever seen in my lifetime. What impact do you see it having on the midterms?
Well, what I'm saying, it's like look at the kind of people that were winning. We had the one in Colorado and the one in New York, and then across the country. And to look at El Sayed, he calls Israel as a rogue state, and he's equated Hamas and Israel's government as well. That's their feature. They're running on just below the surface of just Jew hating, and it's absurd what people are running on that. When now you are threatening to arrest the Democratic leader of Israel in your city, that you have no authority, and we are not a part of the ICC anyway. Why are you staying in that lane? And I'm like, sit down. and do your job, because you have plenty of problems in New York to address that, because they know that's what pays the bills for the fringe now hating on Israel, whether it's in Michigan or whether it's Colorado or in New York. You know, that's become the feature of that fringe and these socialists and communists. And now you have, Piker, in those Mao pajamas at that event, and he was celebrating Mao. The guy that was responsible for 40 million deaths in China. So now we have Democrats, doing events with these people. Jay Street now, he's hosting him for events. No, this is part of what's happening. As a Democrat, I'm going to call that out, and I'm going to proud to stand with regular, reasonable, common sense kinds of Democrats, because calling what it is, I think that's our duty here.
Wow, that is wild, guys. So let me know your thoughts with John Fetterman down below. I'd love to hear your comments. And again, check out the links below to learn how to begin investing. Thanks for watching. God bless. We'll talk to you soon.